Hello, I hope that you are practicing radical self-care. I hope that you are taking beautiful care of yourself. I hope that you are waking up in the morning, putting on a guided meditation. I hope that you are getting plenty of exercise, drinking lots of water, eating healthy food, surrounding yourself with kind, loving people. I hope that you are reading lots of books, hopefully on boundaries and sort of treating your codependence if you identify as that. Not everyone in these communities is necessarily codependent, and just because you might identify as having some of the codependent characteristics, it doesn't mean that you are responsible for the abuse that you endured. I want to make sure that I send that message, because sometimes it's almost like I feel like we're blaming people, like victim blaming, and like you did not cheat, gaslight, manipulate, engage in, no empathy, show no empathy to your partner. Like I recognize if you're in this community, then you probably didn't do those things. So I'm not saying that you're responsible for anyone else's bad behavior. The only thing about the codependent, which is a trauma response that you're not responsible for, it happened to you when you were a little kid. It was the coping mechanism that you learned to best negotiate this world, right? And so, but as an adult, and even then as a kid, it's maladaptive, and it's not in your highest and best good, because people pleasing at our own expense and keeping the focus on external, making sure everyone's fixed and okay and they're okay, and then ignoring your own needs is not healthy for anyone. So and the reason I'm sort of going off on that tangent is I just wanted to really emphasize that if you identify as having codependent characteristics, like I'm not saying that is allows you or is okay that you were abused by a narcissist or a sociopath, like not even close, right? So in this video, what I'm going to talk about is sort of the characteristics of a neglectful, covert narcissist. And there's always going to be some overlap in these different labelings of sort of the narcissist. I mean, there's going to be overlap, and if you were with a neglectful covert narcissist, they might not have all of these characteristics, but these are some of them that they might have. One thing is they tend to be very emotionally detached, right? They are people that the way they look at emotions is they think that emotions are weak. It's a weakness. And they think that you are weak if you show emotions or have emotions. And that's usually because they grew up in a family where the showing and displaying emotions or having feelings was definitely frowned upon. It was not allowed in their families of origin typically. These people tend to be emotionally cold. It's like you're living with an iceberg. They tend to have low affect. So, the covert, sort of neglectful narcissists, they tend to have like not a lot of emotional affect. Like you're not going to see great displays of joy or even necessarily anger. These are not the ones that are known for having the rages. Some coverts do, but these people, you may never see an overt display of rage. Their rage is all cold, calculated, passive-aggressive, revenge, that sort of rage. So they are definitely rageful inside, but they're very careful about showing that. These are people that can never be pleased or satisfied no matter how hard you work to please them. They tend to create children or stepchildren with low self-esteem. The kids receive no validation from this parent, especially when that kid turns into a teen and starts to differentiate and become their own person, because these people tend to look at their children and their spouses or their partners or their stepchildren as extensions of them. They have a very hard time seeing that this person is separate from them, has separate feelings, wants, needs, and desires, right? So they have a very hard time when children start to differentiate. They're really good usually with little kids, because little kids are giving them all sorts of validation, and they don't have to, they're not showing their individuality, right? They're not challenging the narcissist. These people are bullies, right? They tend to be, with the coverts, it's hidden bullying. It's all manipulation and all like punishing you later. And half the time you might not even know what you're being punished for, or even know that you are being punished. They could do a lot of procrastination on like house projects or things that they said that they would get done. They don't get done because they're punishing you. It's really weird. And for them, you have to remember that their motivation for being in relationship relationships is not love. It's not connection. It's not bonding. It's not community. It's not partnership. Their reason for being in a relationship is power and control, right? They want to have power and control over other people, over their lives, over what other people think of them. They're all about power and control. Once you know that that is their primary motivation, then it's going to help you to understand these people more. They appear to be invulnerable and unaffected by others or circumstances. Sometimes they act like they have great disdain for people, but the truth is they are desperately needy for outside validation, and they are never alone. These people can never be alone. They're always in a relationship. There's always overlap. They're always in relationships. They just never take breaks. They don't take proper breaks in between relationships to heal a broken heart because they don't have a broken heart. They didn't give enough of themselves. They did not bond. There is no true bonding or connection that's lasting. So they typically, their hearts don't really get broken, not in a traditional sense. So they can slip. These are the people that can literally slip into another family, even though they've been with their old family for 10, 15, 20 years. They can slip into a new family as if they're putting on a new skin suit. My precious. Sorry. They tend to mirror their targets, especially during the love bombing. They will adopt their target's hobbies, their target's characteristics, even their mannerisms, even the way they dress or their political ideologies. It's weird. They do that a lot. If you're dating someone and you're like, wow, they're really just like me. They're almost like my twin. They really feel and think exactly like I do. We are so similar that if you are having that feeling in the beginning of a relationship, that's actually a red flag. I like it now when somebody's like, oh yeah, I have this different hobby. This other thing I do. And they're like, oh yeah, I don't agree with your political views. I like it when somebody doesn't agree with me now because I'm like, oh good. Because I know that they're not like copying me and mirroring me. And you will get that feeling if you're with one of these narcissists or sociopaths or covert narcissists that like, it's too weird how similar you guys are, right? And then of course that changes during the devaluation because everything that they profess to like about you or like that they acted like was a mutual thing that they liked, they end up devaluing, right? And they devalue you. So then you're like, wow, we have nothing in common now. So that's something that's sort of interesting that happens. They tend to do a lot of passive aggressive bullying. They do not ask for what they need. They do not even tell you they have needs. They do not communicate honestly. So they don't say, here's my need. Can you meet it? Right? They never do that. So you could be in this relationship for a long time and you have no idea what these people want or need or what their needs are because they act as if they don't have any needs. And their ego and pride will not let them ask you to meet a need, right? They're very perfectionistic. They have very rigid, high standards that nobody could live up to. They have the bar set here. Once you reach the bar, they move the bar. So it doesn't matter how hard you work to earn their approval or any sort of, verbal appreciation or anything like that. You're never going to win it. You're never going to meet their standards because the bar is constantly moving. It's very unrealistic. It's very perfectionistic. It's rigid, right? These ridiculously high standards. And they actually don't live up to them themselves. So these are the people that can act like they have this incredible integrity, like they're honest Boy Scouts, like they're so above average in terms of their morality. And they're not. They have a double life. They have a hidden life. They don't have any integrity. These people literally have no integrity. They pretend like they do, and it can be a very convincing presentation. They definitely expect you to have integrity and you need to be honest and you need to not cheat and you need to not lie or gaslight or manipulate, but they can do all those things. So there's a lot of hypocrisy in these relationships. They get bored very easily. And that's because they don't really see people as people. They see people as objects. So everything to them is surface and skin deep. They're not really interested in the richness of the person's individualism, right? Of how that person feels and thinks and their ideas and their expression and their dreams. They're just not interested. You may also see with these people that they tend to lack long-term goals. They have a hard time with long-term goal setting. They actually sort of avoid it. In terms of like, if you're married to them and you're trying to plan for the future, there is none of that. There's no planning for the future with these people. There's no like adherence to goal setting. And then even if you ask them like, what are your hopes? What are your dreams? Like they literally might have no answer for you, because they tend to be like almost like empty shells. Like they don't necessarily have their own hopes and dreams. They're almost parasitic with the people that they're with, right? They crave praise and recognition. Again, they're very approval seeking. They tend to have low or no empathy. They just don't empathize with you, with your children, with their children, with the stepchildren, with the affair partner, with the affair partner's children. They'll fake empathy, but they don't have real empathy, right? They tend to be very snobbish and superior. You are less than, they are better than. They have an addiction to feeling special and unique, right? Everyone is less than them. All 7.5 billion people on the planet are beneath them. They're the minions, right? And they have trust issues with everyone. They do not trust anyone. They cannot trust people, and they're ultra paranoid. They may hide that, but that's all very internal. They tend to be have addictions and compulsions. They tend to be addicted to pornography, gambling, drinking, drugs, money, sex, power, success. They're addicted, right? These people tend to have comorbid addictions. They can be very grandiose, but the grandiosity is very hidden in the coverts. They tend to not nurture others, because they were not nurtured themselves, not emotionally nurtured. They may have had their basic needs met, food, shelter, all of that, and maybe even a high fashion, but their emotional well-being was not nurtured. Also, a lot of times with these narcissists, they were put on a pedestal by their parents and objectified, and they were like spoiled. They were given all of this like, worship almost by their parents, but it wasn't in a way where the parent was interested in who they actually were as a person. It was more like, look at my perfect child. So the child could make the parent look like the perfect parent, right? They were like on the pedestal. And that is dehumanizing, and it is abuse, actually. People don't realize it, but it is. They tend to have pathological self-centeredness. Everything is self-referential. And if they're with the covert neglect or the neglectful narcissist, they might not talk about that much. It's just internally, everything is about them. They tend to be pathological about money. They're either very stingy and controlling, or they can be generous, but there's strings attached. Everything is strategic with them. Like everything is about money, because to them, money equals love, money equals power. So they're always about gaming people for money. However they can hustle you for money and let you not know it, they're going to do that. Or if they can use money to have control and power over you and then shame you for it. If they can create a dependence on them financially and then shame you for it, but tell you, oh, it's fine, no problem, it's fine that you're dependent on me, but then later shame you, that's a sign that you're dealing with one of these people. Sometimes they will be generous about money with their wife or husband, especially if they're having an affair, and they'll justify their affair being like, oh, well, I'm giving my wife or husband money and I'm supporting them, so it's okay for me to have sex outside of this marriage with a prostitute or whatever, or a affair partner. A lot of them don't actually like older kids. They like the little kids, but not as much with the older kids, because again, going back to that idea that little kids are great supply because they worship adults that are nice to them. But, and these coverts can be very, very nice to little kids, right? Nice, not kind, nice. But then when that kid starts turning into a teenager, a lot of times the narcissist will sort of reject them or not be interested in them anymore, because that, again, that kid is starting to develop their own self, and they may be imperfect. They may be a teenager that's acting out and doing things that are naughty, or even, doing, things that are self-destructive, and the narcissist just wants nothing to do with that. Little kids are easy to manipulate. So, siblings that grow up in these families tend to be pitted against each other, and they tend to be not very close. Sometimes in these families, there can be a golden child that can do no wrong, and then a scapegoat that can do no right. And it's very, these kids are pitted against each other, which means as adults, they lack closeness. Let's see. In these, with these covert neglectful narcissists, people's feelings just do not matter. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry. I already mentioned smug and superior. Okay, narcissism can actually be in the family structure. If both parents are narcissists, it's really toxic for kids. But some narcissists will be with a codependent, and there can be this codependent that's like trying to overly almost smother the kid, and then the narcissist that's giving them the silent treatment and stonewalling, and that can be a very confusing dynamic for kids and very dysfunctional to witness that. These people tend to overvalue themselves and undervalue everyone else. They use and exploit others. They have an expectation that they're going to be catered to. They cannot handle any criticism. They rage, and this rage can be overt or covert. You may never see an outward display of anger, but internally it's a cold rage. They tend to be very aloof and overly sensitive to any criticism or perceived criticism. These people tend to be workaholics. They get a lot of validation from work. They have a disregard for other people's personal boundaries. They don't have good internal boundaries. They don't have boundaries like, oh, I got married, I said wedding vows, I said that I would be faithful, and then they cheat because they don't adhere to boundaries. They cheat indiscriminately. They withhold affection until others perform. They often do this with their kids, and they'll do this with their spouse. Like they can withhold sex, money, validation, attention, affection, physical touch. They withhold, especially if they know you want that, right? They're very good at punishing you for exactly the thing you would like to have. They tend to be very arrogant and prideful. They need to have their ego stroked at all times. Like you need to be telling them how amazing they are at all times. They treat others with contempt. They are not honest or direct about their needs. And these people tend to get worse with age. Their pathological self-centeredness gets worse. They leave destruction in their path. So they just tend to get worse and worse with age. They just don't really care about others. They have low or no empathy. The only time that they're going to be worried about caring about your needs is performatively. If they're either trying to con you or they're trying to show others that they're such a perfect husband or such a perfect wife, right? And they'll do that to triangulate also with the new source of supply. They are fabricators of the truth. They are manipulators. They gaslight. What is gaslighting? It's where you make somebody question their own reality or sanity. That's not what you heard. That's not what happened. That's not how it happened. That's not what I said. They are massive gaslighters. They tend to wear a mask of perfection. They may even appear to be particularly nice, particularly kind, particularly honest. They may appear to have this almost like a halo effect where they're like better than average. They're just amazing, right? But this is a ruse, right? The narcissists internally, they are always the victim. They cannot admit that they did anything wrong. They cannot admit that there's anything wrong with them. They cannot acknowledge or take any personal responsibility for the harm that they cause you as their spouse or partner, the affair partner, the affair partner's children, your children, the stepchildren, the families that they hurt. They refuse to take any personal responsibility. The only time they may take personal responsibility is if they're using it to triangulate. Like they're telling the new source of supply, oh yeah, I did some things wrong in that relationship, right? They may admit that to the new source, but they'll never go to the original person and be like, hey, I'm really sorry that I lied, cheated, gaslighted, whatever, financially abused you. That was wrong of me. I need to make amends. They will not do that. They have too much pride to ever acknowledge that they could have had a part in the problems in the relationship directly to the person that they hurt. Again, they may use it for triangulation to, tell their parents or their new partner that, yeah, there was some things I did wrong in that relationship. Like they may admit that to other people performatively to make it look like they're taking personal responsibility, but not to the person that they actually harmed or the children or stepchildren that they actually harmed. The message that they send to their partners is that they are not worthy of love. They're not good enough, that love is very conditional. They treat you in a way that lets you know that you don't deserve love. You are too much of this. You're not enough of that. This is a very damaging message to the people that partner with these people, and it is a complete lie. If you were raised by a narcissist, you may have internalized this belief that you're not lovable, you're not good enough, you can't do anything right. Relationships with narcissists, especially covert narcissists, are always one-sided. Your needs do not matter. And they act like they know more than you, they are better than you, and they are superior. They refuse to communicate, they refuse to share feelings or tell the truth. They tend to lie to your face, and they are fine with that. They're fine internally with lying to your face. They don't have any remorse about it. They don't tend to have any guilt about it. It just doesn't faze them. The only thing that phases them is if they get caught and exposed, and other people know that maybe this person isn't quite the saint that they're pretending to be. They are incredibly sensitive to perceived or real criticism. They cannot take it. Again, I mentioned this before, but they tend to have a muted effect of expression, sort of a flat, muted display of emotions, a limited range of emotions. They tend to have a poor sense of humor, and if they have any sense of humor, it is not self-depreciating. They cannot laugh at themselves. It's completely up to you to hold up the relationship. They do not put any effort. They are motivated by ego, power, and dominance. They can tend to be, some of them are very successful with money because they tend to have no boundaries around money, and they may engage in criminal behaviors or just unethical. They're going to hustle their partner for money or work or whatever, or hustle people, right? And they can do it in a very stealthy way. They'll steal from others because money to them equals power. They confuse money for love. They tend to be very competitive, and they must win, and they must get ahead of others. They will betray others for money. They will lie for money or sex. During divorce, they will definitely cheat their spouses out of money. It's just how they operate. They've been hiding money. They'll cheat their spouses out of money, assets, property, if they can get away with it. These relationships with covert narcissists, they will not communicate their needs with integrity. And I've said this before, but they just don't. They expect their partners to read their minds, right? And none of us are mind readers. That's a ridiculous thing to expect other people to do. Again, conflict with them is never resolved. They do not communicate honestly. They manipulate to get their needs met rather than in a straightforward, honest manner. They are the least authentic people you will ever meet because, again, they're sending a false self. They're sending a mask of perfection. It is a false self. They're disassociated from their true self. In the beginning, during the love bombing, they will use flattery. They will love bomb you. They will manipulate you with flattery. They will tell you you're a genius. You're the smartest person that you've ever met. They've never felt like this. You're the most beautiful. You're the love of their life. They're just so enamored with you, right? That's all love bombing. That's definitely most prevalent during the idealization phase. But then there's going to be the devalue and then eventually the discard, right? And sometimes this 3 phases of the relationship, idealization, devaluation, discard, will go on in cycles throughout the relationship. Or sometimes with the covert, neglectful ones, it can literally be like idealization and then a long period of devaluation that's slow and subtle and over time, and then a brutal discard that you didn't see coming. You're like a frog being boiled in water. You don't even know what's happening to you. They refuse to take any ownership for problems in the relationship or problems with themselves. They are going to blame their scapegoat spouse or partner for everything that goes wrong in their life. Now, they may do that verbally, or they may just do it internally in their minds. But in their minds, you're to blame for everything that has gone on wrong in their life. They typically do not go to therapy. If they do, it's only because somebody dragged them to therapy, their partner or whatever, and they will lie in therapy and gaslight the therapist and act superior to the therapist. So they don't really get any therapeutic value, because if you lie to the therapist, therapy won't work, right? Sometimes they'll go to therapy if it will help give them an advantage in a divorce, right? These people are controllers. They're highly rigid and controlling. With coverts, they may appear to be the more passive one in the relationship. And if you're in the relationship with them, you may even feel like you're more the one in charge. They may appear to be like super passive. That person is in charge. That's the stronger personality. But if you really, once you get out and you look back, you'll notice that they were the ones pulling the strings the whole time. They were just making it look performatively like you were in control. They gave you that facade. But if you notice, like, your name's not on assets, they kept your name off assets, they controlled the money, they controlled, you know, all sorts of things, right? And you'll realize that you were actually not the one in the driver's seat, right? And that can be really confusing for people. So how to avoid these people? Well, in the beginning, when you first meet them, listen to your body, listen to your intuition. It's going to tell you there's something off about this person. It's just going to tell you, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it in your body. Other red flags, love bombing, a lot of overt flattery, a lot of seduction. They may tell you they love you right away, early on, like in the first few weeks or month of being with them. That's a red flag. They don't know you. They don't know you, so they can't love you. I don't believe that you can love somebody right away like that. I used to believe in love at first sight. I don't believe in that anymore. Love is built over time of getting to know a person. They are in love with the fact that they're getting supply from you. That's a very different thing than real love. They may think that they're in love with you, but it's a very delusional way of looking at things, and what they consider love, I don't think most people would consider love. It's really, they love the way you're making them feel by giving them a lot of supply, right? So too much too soon, love bombing, overtly flattering, telling you they love you right away, trying to rush the sex, that's huge, wanting to spend every moment with you, not having clean, healthy boundaries. Like, these are all red flags. Maybe backhanded compliments, where they give you a compliment, but then it's sort of like, you're like, oh, is that a compliment? Because it made me feel bad. So that's a red flag. People in these relationships, if they've been in one of these relationships with a covert, neglectful narcissist for a long time, these people, or any sort of narcissist, they can develop anxiety disorders, health problems, autoimmune issues, complex post-traumatic stress syndrome, insomnia, traumatic, experiences in their body. They can have all sorts of issues from being in these relationships. They will use your mercy against you. They will manipulate all of your good qualities. They will use your forgiveness against you. They will use your generosity against you. They will use your empathy against you. They will use your caring and empathy against you to get their needs met, right? They love impasse because they know that impasse are actually sort of easy to manipulate, because impasse would never do half the stuff that, they won't do the stuff that narcissists do. So they can't even imagine being that way. They would never, impasse are really usually generous with money. They're not all consumed with money like a narcissist. So a narcissist knows that they're going to be able to extract money and hard work and labor and free labor out of the empath. Very common. So the only ones that can stay in long-term relationships with these folks are usually the ones that are almost like the more codependent you are, the longer you can stay in the relationship, or the more abuse you had in your past as a kid. It sometimes puts you in this position to be hurt for the possibility of love or approval. And a lot of times really resilient people who are used to going through difficult things and bouncing back, they may stay in these relationships for a long time because they don't know when to quit. So narcissists are often attracted to strong people, good people, but a lot of times those people also have porous boundaries. And if you have codependent characteristics, you might try to fix or change people or fix the broken toys, and that puts you in a position to be with a toxic individual. So I'm sort of running out of time in this video because I don't want to make it go over, and it's already pretty long. So hopefully you got something out of this, and I hope you guys are thriving today and having a wonderful day. Bye.